Hi guys. Let's turn that off. Okay. I am such a sucker for music. I just love music. All kinds of music. Okay, well, anyway, guys, I'm Mark Black. This is Mark Teaches Music Channel, and this is To Play and Sing. What is that? Where is that? Get off of me. Yeah, go. Gotta look cool, man. Okay, so that's me looking cool. Okay, so this is To Play and Sing. This is our question and answer, or live question and answer, asking. You ask all your questions. I answer a lot of them, not necessarily all of them. Try to answer all of them, but I can't answer all the questions for sure. This is the 9th day of November. Isn't that crazy? And I want you to have fun and be awesome. Back really about 15 years ago, was like, how to encapsulate what I want to accomplish. Do I want all of my students to be professional musicians? Do I want all of my students to be rich and famous? Well, if they gave all, half of their rich and famous money to me, then maybe they could do that. No, I was trying to figure out, what do I want people to do? What I want people to do is I want them to have fun and enjoy their music and to be great and be as good as they can be. Hey, Mark, how's it going, man? So I'm trying to answer your questions about learning. Now, listen, don't just watch. Ask me some questions. And again, you can make up stuff that's not that important to you. But the best idea would be more like things that are puzzling you, things relationships that you don't understand. I'm not talking about personal relationships. I'm talking about like, how does a scale equal a great solo? How does scales equal chords? I'm not faulting anybody, but I can't get over how many people just cannot grasp the relationship between scales and chords. Scales and chords. Right? As an example of a question, I'm not going to answer that unless you ask me. Yes, of course, you must ask the question. So let's see. Practicing, performing, how your personality affects things. Questions about being in ensembles. If you're, having a discussion with one of the other band members, do you lead with a right hook or an uppercut? Questions like that. So for information about lessons, go to www.dallasmusiclessons.com, and it talks about lessons there and how to sign up for lessons or just information. And then if you got questions, now this is your opportunity to ask questions. Drop them in the chat down here, and then if you're watching this after the actual chat, the live stream, then send me an email at mark@dallasmusiclessons.com. Mark with a K at dallasmusiclessons.com, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. So I want you to jump right in. Don't wait around. Ask your questions. And then, as you know, you need to like this. You need to subscribe. You need to, get other people to watch. Tie them up. To put the things in the eyes that hold their eyes open where they have to watch. 10 or 15 people where they have to watch. And so anyway, get a lot of people watching this. And so click the bell for notification. All those good things. Okay, so let's see here. I'm looking at my questions. Okay, well look, there you go. There's Mark asking that question. What is the relationship between scales and chords? Now, different instruments. The reason I'm interrupting myself to say that in music school, by the way, different instruments. Different instruments lend themselves to understanding music better. The piano is in music school. Everybody has to take 2 years of piano. One is because it's a very pervasive instrument, but another reason, and perhaps the most important reason, is that the piano, you can see all of music theory. Everything that someone would say about music theory, you can see easily on the piano. You can't see it as well on the guitar. You can't see it as well on the bass. You can't see it on the mandolin. You can't see it on the ukulele, because the different strings are basically tuned differently. You can't see the relationship. You can't directly see the relationship between this note on the first string, this note on the second string. You can't directly see that. You can't see it on your flute. You can't see it on your trumpet. Trumpet, for example, would be worse than a saxophone in understanding music theory, and the reason would be because for a trumpet, this is more than one note, you know. Whereas on the saxophone or the flute, uh, clarinet has this problem a little bit. The trumpet's problem, but anyway. But like the sax, the flute, the oboe, you know, you hold your fingers this way, and it is an E, you know, or whatever, depending on the instrument, you know. And then if you hit an octave, it's a high E, and if you take it off, it's a low E, and it doesn't change. And of course, if you get to the higher registers on all those instruments, we have to change the finger. But the basic fingering is the same. So anyway, it's very clear on the piano how music theory works. So I'm going to answer this question. Uh, okay, so here's the question. First off, the relation between scales and chords, which is a great question. And then it says, do I need to understand every note in the scale to have a great solo? No. So let me answer that question first. Now I'm gonna phrase the question like this: how much of music theory do you have to understand to solo well? The answer is, I hate to say this, is none. You know, like Charlie Christian, for example. I mean, Wes Montgomery and Charlie Christian didn't read music, and many great jazz players in the middle era did not read, um, and for that matter, Luciano Pavarotti did not read. Okay, quit asking. That's too many questions. That's enough questions from you, buddy. No, I'm kidding. But let me answer the one question to begin with. And so the first question is, how much music theory do I have to know to solo well or play well? And the answer is, in an absolute sense, none, because music is about ears, right? If you listen to that piano thing I was playing a second ago, if you liked it, even if you didn't like it, it's like, why did you like or didn't like it? Because your ears. Did you understand anything about it? Did you know what my chords were? Did you know what notes I used over which chords? Whether I played 7 chords or not, or you know, were they all in the same key? You didn't know anything about it. Your ear didn't anyway. You just said that was cool, or I hated it, or I like this part here, all because of your ear hearing sounds. So some people are so gifted. So, and this is an extreme. Let's put my hand way over here. Yeah. Okay. So this is an extreme. Some people are so gifted orally with their ears that they can play anything they hear, and they do not. A lot of them actually, truly, that are great musicians. They don't really know what they did. That is, they don't know why that sounded good. They just know it did, and they know they got it, and it's there, boom. And so I'm saying I want to characterize that as an extreme because most people are not in that situation. They can only use their ear. They're in a situation where their ear is not this good. See, I've got it way over in the edge, like, wow, incredible ear. It's like their ear is this good. It's pretty good, or it's not that good. So their ear needs to be supplemented. It needs to be taught to become a better ear. But also it needs some information. It's like, well, what key am I in? You know, what chord is that? What kind of chord is that? You know, how does this chord fit in the scale? In other words, we all have 3 ways to learn. And that is, we have our ear, we have our brain saying play an F, that's an F sharp, or we need to play an F sharp, and we have our fingers, our skill. So we have ears, we have brains, and we have fingers making us play well. And as I've said this before, but as a gross stereotype, rock and blues and country is ear and fingers. And as a gross stereotype, classical music is brain and fingers. You know, both of them involve fingers. So and that's, you know, but what I'm trying to say is that use a lot of brain in the classical music, and not so much ears, and we use a lot of ears in pop music and not so much brain. But wouldn't it be great if instead of working with 2 guys, we could cut the load by half by getting 3 guys involved? That is your ear, your brain, and your fingers. So anyway, we want to get our brain involved. So in an absolute sense, you don't have to have your ear. I mean, you don't have to have you have to understand what you're playing or what chord you're playing over. You just are listening, you know. It'd be really cool to play this sound. Although what works out is that, well, that sound that you thought was cool is also a piece of information that your brain could have learned. Hey, if you play the 3rd or the 5th over this chord, it'd be really cool. Or, you know, if you want to sound weird, you know, play the 2nd, or less common, play the 2nd, play the 6th, you know, like that, or the 7th. You know, if you want it to sound very solid, play the 1, play the 3. So I'm saying this is information that your ear's telling you anyway, whether you get it or not. All right, so let's pick all these 350. Speaking, wait. Okay, so wait. All right. So you do not have to understand every note of a scale. And what happens is let's go over to the piano. I'm going over to the piano and I'm answering these questions. And listen, we know this is like scrolls, Can I go up on the scroll? I'm worried now that the I'm worried now that the questions are going to disappear. I don't know how this thing works. Okay, so I'm going to go over here to a different shot because I want to show you on the paper answering the question, the relation between scales and chords. Now this is every key, but I'm going to start with. First, I'm going to turn this on. Is this loud enough? Hello, is this thing on? Hey, Mom, I love you. Mom, watch this. Okay, I know you can see this. So I'm going to use the C scale. I hate to use the C scale, but if I use, here's an A scale. If I use another scale, people who aren't used to looking at the piano or playing the piano, you get to where you can't really, you kind of don't count that as one of the notes, the black keys. So I'm going to use the C scale, and I apologize that I don't, nothing wrong with the key. See, it's a wonderful key, but there's 11 other great keys, or 14, depending on how you want to count them. And, but this is very obvious. So here's the C scale. If you're on the guitar, you play the first major pattern on the 8th fret, starting with the second finger. That would be the sound. Okay, so anyway, when you play a scale, here's a scale. Hey man, this song's the key of C. That means it's using these notes. So from this scale, we can use some of the notes. And if we use these 3 notes, we get a C chord. And if we use these 3 notes, this is still in that scale, we get an F chord. And if we use these 3 notes, this is a D, an F, and an A, we get an A minor chord. And if we use this chord, these 3 notes, we get a G chord. And what I want you to notice about that is that's a million men songs. I love you, baby. You're so fine. Oh, honey. Oh, I think about you all the time. That's a million billion songs that would use those 4 chords. And so when we refer to a key, I'm not trying to be overly pedantic about this, but the key is all the, so we have a scale is this, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, a group of notes. Okay, a key is all the things we can build from those notes. We can build a solo. I'm sorry. Or we can go. So we're still using only these white keys. We're only using notes in the C scale. So we can build a melody from the notes of the C scale. We can build chords. So again, the scale is the list of notes. Those notes, and then we do these notes in different combinations to produce a G chord, or a C chord, or an A minor chord, or a D chord. So, and I've said this before, the scale or solos are this way, linear, longitudinal, and then the chords are vertical, and we're playing them, all just means we're playing them at the same time. So in one sense, we play our melodies or scales this way, singly. It's not exactly true, but sort of true. And then we play chords, take those same notes, instead of this, we go, now I got a C6 chord. That's a C6 chord. If I play like this, I got a melody, not a chord. But guess what? Put those notes all together. Or if I go like this, that's a melody. Hey, cool. I'm playing this here. I'm going to play this. But if I play it all at once, I got a C major 7 chord. So that's the relationship of scales and chords. When you play a chord, you're playing notes out of a scale. Sometimes, most of the time, the notes from that chord in most songs are notes of the scale, of the 7 notes. The 3 notes, the 4 notes that you're playing are notes from the 7 notes, a smaller subset. Okay, I'm going to go over here, see what happened to those lists. Okay. Yeah, music is about your ears, absolutely. Okay, so now I'm still have sound, yes. Okay, and let's see. Okay, so here's Christy Terry with her good question. So says Mark. Mark says it's a good question, but I don't know. Oh, I got to switch pictures back of my head. So anyway, speaking of ear training, how do you train your ear to go from just recognizing a wrong note to anticipating the right one? Well, now let's think about that. That particular phrasing of question. What I'm saying is, I know many ways to train your ears, so and things that are necessary and stuff. But let's see, to recognizing not just recognizing. Now, that the point is naturally your ear's reactive. That is, it goes like this, and it goes like, oh, it reacts, you know, to the wrong note, and it's also can't help you. It just goes wrong, 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 wrong. Well, and that's true. Okay, but think about it. You actually know what the right note was. They went ba 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 ba, and if you think about it. So what it is in response to Christy's question here, is like instead. So you know the right sound, you just don't make your ear say it. So if I go ba 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 ba, we all know that the correct sound, and everybody listening, everybody knows that correct sound is da 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 da. So this is not. It's also the dream sequence in all songs. I don't know, Jim. Where I can't see anything. Where am I? But anyway, that note is a wrong note if we were trying to stay in the key of C. It's a right note if we're in other keys. But anyway, and you say, what should be there? Ba, 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 ba. So what you don't know, your ear knows the right sound. It's just that so that's your right side, your ear sound. Your ear side of your brain says, I know what that should have been. This should have been da 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 da. But your left side, your brain side, your math part can't tell you what that is. So I'm saying you're reacting to that question. Hear the wrong sound. Hear the wrong note. Where do I find the right note? You have to tell your ear sing that correct note, and then brain find that right note. Not apart from your instrument, but so Bob, let's do it in another key. Let's do it like this. Okay. So that the ba 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 ba. So now I'm singing the right note, ba, and I'll find it on my instrument. What is that on my instrument? Now, of course, as we train our ears and get better and better, you can hear. What I'm saying is, you don't have to play on an instrument. Your ear can go, you raised that for that. You raised the 4. You played a sharp 4. You should have played a natural 4, so that should have been a G. That was in the key D. In other words, your ear can figure out all those things, but that's not necessarily right at first. Okay, so let's see here. Now, come back to me. I answered the question. So what Christy's question was, how do you train your ear to go from just recognizing a wrong note to anticipating the right one? Well, in my example, we played the wrong note, and then we made to fix that to do what she was saying. We said, okay, sing the right note and find the right note. Now that may not have been an answer for what she was asking, because if we're playing a lot of notes, so it's like that. Oh, that was wrong. I was like, and it's gone. And you're playing some other notes. And so, of course, what we're trying to do is play more and more right notes. And to do that, of course, again, remember what I said about the ear being reactive, responsive. The ear responds. Oh, you did this wrong. You did this right. It's at the moment and for a long, long time, unless you're. Now, here's my. I thought I had my mighty ear was over here. The mighty ear. This is the mighty ear. The guy who only needs to play his ear, use his ears. Way over here. He only needs his ear, and there's definitely people like that. So unless you're way over here with this crazy mighty ear, you're going to be using your right brain, your math brain, a lot, not exclusively, no sir, but a lot to say, I should be on the 11th fret doing this. I should be using this pattern. This will produce a bunch of good notes. Now, playing your scales and things like that, I'm talking about ear training. So you play those scales and you play those patterns. And I'm just looking to see there's a guitar over here. I don't know if it's plugged in or not. Oh, an acoustic guitar is plugged in. Well, that's kind of messed up here. Anyway, I just wanted to do this. If you play these patterns, you practice these patterns like you should, like a good person, like God made you to be. Now, you practice these patterns a lot, as you should. What happens is you know what that sound's going to be, and I want to illustrate that for you. And you've heard this George Benson, but he didn't invent it or anything, but a lot of people. And it's called solfege. Just in the solfege has many meanings. So here we go. I want to show you that I know what I'm going to play. So I know it's going to come out boom, 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 boom. Why? Because I spent hours and years singing solfege? No. Because I spent hours and years going. Playing these patterns, and so when I go, I know that sound's going to be. So now, yes, although on everybody, now if you don't, so I just got through saying, okay, you practice these patterns and you know what the sounds are going to be, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but it won't happen unless you are being active about it. What I'm saying is you might incidentally pick up those sounds, and you might pick up so here's stage one. You're, by the way, picking up those sounds. And then stage two would be, you're fixing to go, you're going da, 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 da. And if you get to play the next note, you're like, that's going to be da, da. Your da, 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 da. The blue note, note after that, da, da. Is that? You're hearing it before, and so like, I'm anticipating that sound. And then the final step, whether it's just not necessarily the best step, because you don't necessarily want to be able to sing it, but it would be like, I can actually sing that note, without a lot of effort. Because what I'm saying, going from I'm playing these patterns and it sounds correct to I'm playing these patterns and in my ear I hear what that next sound should be, going to I could actually sing that out loud, and I actually could sing it, and then finally I can sing it. I could actually use it, like to do the solfege thing, which is cool and it's impressive, and all like that. So, okay. So I'm going to leave. I got these questions here, and I appreciate them. And ask me some more now. Just dump the questions right in there. But I think I've answered them. I'll be glad to go back into it. If you have any more clarification, just say so, and I'll just put it in the chat, and I will get back to it. So, okay, here's think about those questions. Now I'm going to a question over here, and it says, why couldn't I learn when I was a kid? 'Cause you a fool. No. Well, that is about it. No. Why couldn't I learn when I was a kid? Okay, so there's a lot of possible reasons, and I'm just going to go over them. And the deal is that some of those would affect us right now, of course, but most of them not. And I'm saying this, going through this question to say what you did as a kid typically has little or no bearing on how you could do now as a older teen or adult, because here's a bunch of different reasons. So you couldn't concentrate when you're a kid, just the whole concept of I'm just going to sit here and I'll work on this thing X, whatever it is, studying for a class, sitting in a lesson, sitting with my instrument, learning things. It's like, wow, that's really hard to do, even though you may know that you need to do it. In general, you probably wouldn't even conceive of the idea that just on its own, I should, as a good human being, I should be able to sit and work on this thing here, or I should work on it. So I'm saying the idea of concentrating. Uh, you don't, as a kid, young person, typically don't see the value of practice, of the playing, of music. How does this fit in my life? It doesn't. My mom makes me do it, or it's really cool when I have a solo, and then I hate all the other times in band or whatever. You know, so you don't see the value of what you're doing it, or that the price you're paying for it is worth it. You do not see that typically. Um, Lots of important concepts and skill or knowledge are unknown or just dawning on you. Little kids, I'm not saying, I don't think any of you have this problem, but I'm not kidding. Somewhere between 3 and um, two, let's say 2 and 6, a kid figures out that he doesn't know this. He figures out that, hey, instead of just moving my whole hand, I could actually just move one finger of the hand, or these are different fingers. They could do different things. I could do something with this finger, and something with this finger, and something with this finger, and then I could do these two and leave these 3 alone. I'm saying that concept, which of course is obvious to us as older folks, old people, as a kid, is something you have to discover. So, just as an example, I'm talking about concepts that people are learning as they're young and they do not have in the beginning. Um, this is a real thing, is that they're having to realize they did not occur to them. Like when I'm talking to the piano is a good instrument for young kids, because it's just, put this finger on here, play this white key or this black key. But when I tell a little kid, put your third finger on the second fret of the third string, I've just blown their mind. Second, third finger, second, fret, which one's the fret? And it's just like so much, that whole level of complexity, which is nothing for an adult, is like mind-blowing for a kid. Now don't forget, now put your questions in here, and we can go back over anything I didn't cover. So lots of times kids don't have good teachers or good instruments, and just as parents, of which I have 4 kids, so I'm a parent, and lots of times parents assume that, which I understand them assuming it, don't agree of course, but they just assume any teacher will work, any instrument will work. I complained about this 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's like people start taking lessons, as most generally kids, and then it's like they're 2 weeks later they'll show up with a brand new instrument without ever saying anything to me, like, do I need a so and so, what would be best, like this. So it's just like, you have just cursed yourself for 2 years or something with this really crappy instrument that doesn't do what you want to you don't like the kind of music it plays. So all I'm saying is a lot of times kids are, they have a bad teacher, they have a bad instrument, and people are being sincere and trying their best, but you as a little kid, you don't own your music. Typically you don't think like, I'm going to succeed at this, I want to make it work, I'm going to get in there and do what it takes to succeed because I love this. It's more like, it's kind of either I hate the whole thing or it's kind of sporadic, or any of those kinds of things. Don't have a good place to practice. Your girlfriend left you, your boyfriend left you, you failed chemistry, life just sucks in general, everything sucks, you suck, and basically you're just not in control of your situation. So, hey Jeffrey. Anyway, so that's a lot of times, and listen, again, I'm saying this question was a good question because I wanted to say almost always, loads of people have lots of people. I got in band when I was 10 in Mississippi. Hard time Mississippi. It wasn't a hard time for me though, but it was Mississippi in 10, and I loved being in the band, and it was in the orchestra, and then went to music school, and was in a chorales and just different. All just loved it all. I'm talking about ensembles and playing with other people, but so a lot of times kids are doing things because they're supposed to most of the time. So I'm just saying, if you were there and you didn't practice when you were 12 and 15, or you hated your teacher made you, do this, or that your teacher slapped your, slapped your hand with a ruler, whatever, or just didn't see the point, or you didn't succeed. A lot of those reasons that you didn't succeed are gone. They no longer exist. The reasons that you didn't do well, or a lot of them are gone, and like I said, no longer exist. And now you would do tremendously better because you would see the value of what you do. You would see, if I practice, so and so will happen. You would be like music. I see I could do this music, and you would know that how to move different fingers on your hands and stuff like that. The one negative, since this is not one of the questions, but I go ahead and say it, one negative of an adult versus a kid, not an old person, just an adult. You're anywhere from, well, you're not really an adult at 18, but I'm going to say 18, let's say 18 through 60 or something like that. Just average adult. One negative is that a little kid frequently has no clue of two things. They have no musical taste, except it's cool. I want my song to be cool, it's on the radio, that kind of thing. And they have no musical taste, no musical preferences, and then they are unaware that they have spent, 2 years sounding like crap, So they're like, they're not really noticing, man, I really sound bad, it's just more like, I'm doing my thing, and somewhere in there they will wake up to how good or bad they sound. But an adult has spent another 20 years on the planet and has figured out things like, well, I don't like jazz, or I don't like big band jazz, or I don't like acoustic rock, or I love acoustic rock, and I don't, in other words, they have preferences. And so that means that instead of the earth could be, you could use anything. Now it's a much narrower subset, because they say, I just like the blues, or I just like, whatever. So they have a narrower choices. And then secondly, an adult has a more developed sense of hearing, listening, appreciating. So then they would say stuff like, hey, I've been working on this for 2 months and it sounds pretty bad, still sounds bad. And so they can get frustrated a lot of times quicker than a kid would, because a kid won't really notice. Okay, I don't see any new questions. I got one more thing I have to say here. What is the definition of a gentleman? Someone asked this question. What is the definition of a gentleman? What is the definition of a gentleman? Well, I'll tell you, folks. It is someone who knows how to play the trombone, but refrains. So if you know how to play the trombone, but you don't do it, then you're a gentleman. Okay, so remember that. That's very important. Okay, so I had some other questions here. I don't see any other questions on the chat. Okay, so and we're done. It's only 30 minutes. Now I want to remind you, the improv workshop, improvising, is Tuesdays at 7:45. That we try to go 45 minutes, and again, anybody can improvise. You can improvise. Absolutely, you can improvise. Please don't be discouraged about that. And you're using your ear. The first set of questions. What it is, if we play notes. Well, I'll go over here briefly and say this one tiny thing, and that is, here is over any particular chord. Check, check, check. Yeah, here's a chord. Let's make it a little cooler. Let's make it just a little bit. So each of these notes, none of these notes sound bad, and I put a little 2 in here to make it a little prettier. Let's do this note. There we go. Sounds a bit tinny to me, but we'll just go with this. Okay, so these notes still work. So what do I want you to know? I'm playing an A minor chord. So here's the first one. Sounds fine. And I'm not going to go in order, because I want to show you this is a descending order from the most solid notes. Now that's the root, the 1. Here's the 3rd. Still sounds great. Here's the 5th. And here's the 7.
Now notice we're going from very solid, and the guy goes, I love. I actually meant to do that. I love you. So all those notes, they sound very solid. And he goes up to the 7. Okay, now let's do the 2. Now that still works, but notice it's a little dissonant. It's a little not wrong, but just not quite as solid. So let's see, we did the 1, 3, 5, 7. There's the 2. So I want you to see 1, 2, 3, very solid. 2, 7, and 6. Let's do 6. Well, let's go to a major key. Yeah. Okay. 1, 3, 5. Sound very solid. Here's the 7. So that sounds a little less. Sounds good. Here's the 2. Here's the 6. So those sound, how much you're ad-libbing. You're going. So here's 7. Here's 2. Here's 6. And they sound fine, but they don't sound as solid as these. Solid is not good necessarily. Solid is solid. And so I'm soloing. And right about now I say, this is rather boring. And so I say, well, let me try by ear. I mean, by brain and by ear. So let me try this 2. Let's try the 6. 7. Here's the 4. You notice the 4 is the least consonant. Okay, now that's
All I was trying to say by saying that was to say that by your gigantic ear, you here are a scale, a pattern, 6 pattern, tonic pattern, 6 major pattern, whatever pattern. It's got a bunch of notes. And over any certain chord, a B flat minor, a C diminished, A half diminished 7, whatever the chord is, some of the notes in your scale will sound very whole. There'll be usually about 3. Then there'll be about 3 of notes in that scale that sound less whole, but very still fine. And that may be a note or 2 that doesn't sound right. Now, we would like to marry the idea. I know what those are. 1, 3, 5 are the solid ones. 2, 6, 7 are the kind of a little more unusual. And usually the 4, these are in the major key, is out. Then, at the same time, there's my big brain. And at the same time, my ear's going, bo, bo, oh, that's the 7, da, 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 do. That's the 5, 6, 5, 4, 3. I'm going with the chord we heard. I'm just singing the chord. So anyway, so the point, these different notes work for us. We have a marriage of, I'm hearing these sounds that are cool. They're in the scale. Some of them sound more solid, less solid. And then I'm using my brain. I'm saying, like I said, a list of notes. 1, 3, 5, very solid. 2, 6, 7, less solid but interesting. And then the 4 note, the note 4, still in the key, not wrong, but we wouldn't want to sit on it. Okay, that's it for today. Remember that a gentleman is someone who knows how to play the trombone but does not. This is Mark Black. This is Mark Teaches Music. This is the live Q&A to play and sing. And until I see you again, I want you, as always, well, no, I guess I got to tell you, to like, subscribe, marry, one of your kids can marry my kids, and probably not, but subscribe, all that kind of stuff. www.dallasmusiclessons.com. The chat is over, so send me any questions at mark@dallasmusiclessons.com. And until I see you again, I want you to have fun and be awesome. All right, see you guys.